Alright everyone, this is a SCOTUS sort of reaction piece here because you've seen one of the bits of sloganeering that the Democrats have coined and then run with, because I think their focus groups determined that it was reasonably effective, is the idea, because they've got nothing they can complain about with Amy Coney Barrett beyond the Planned Parenthood abortion thing, Roe v. Wade basically, which is not endangered by a change in SCOTUS, trust me. Because there's no real platform to attack her on, and because they're afraid to attack her character because she's female, or her religious views because they don't want to be branded as bigots and piss off Catholic voters during an election year. It'd be pretty bad for some of the suburban locations, especially places like New England and the Rust Belt. They can only really attack the idea of replacing Ginsburg with her by going after decorum, saying, well, it's an election year, you shouldn't do, the people need their say. And one of the biggest lines that they use, this has come from Harris, Biden, and so forth, you saw it at the debate, showcased there for the first time for a national audience, is the idea that the voters need to weigh in and have their say before the Senate can vote on Amy Coney Barrett. The proper response to this, and Trump haphazardly responded this way in literally the first line of questioning. He did it effectively enough to get the point across, but he could have used different words and been more of an effective wordsmith, I think. The idea is that the voters had their say. In 2016, they elected a Republican president. In 2018, they handed him 2 extra senators. The people have twice now already spoken. Since there is an open slot, and the president and the senator of the same party, it makes no sense for them to withdraw a nomination, say, okay, we're going to wait until the election is decided. That'd be crazy talk. Especially since it hasn't the GOP, when you talk to all the never-Trumpers, haven't you people spent the last, 40 years salivating over the idea of being able to get rid of Ginsburg anyway? And now at the 11th hour, when she's keeled over and you have an opportunity to replace him, you have idiots like Murkowski that want to hold back their punch. Now's not the time to do that, especially going into an election that will have ballot harvesting. We've already seen it documented. It's happening literally in Pennsylvania and Minnesota on a significant enough scale to potentially tilt those states. Since you might not even have reliable election results, if you have a deadlocked 4-4 court, which you could easily end up having because Roberts happens to exist, can you imagine the fiasco that would result? You think that the riots are bad right now, you'd have 100 times as many people. They'd all be on the lawn of the White House at that point, waving signs and threatening each other with brass knuckles. It could cause a civil war. It would cause at least a minor constitutional crisis and significant amounts of political violence on both sides. That must be avoided, unless you're goddamn insane, and so the appointment needs to be made. Barrett should be put in there before the election, certainly before Inauguration Day, at least in the lame duck session. I happen to favor the former, so that there's absolutely no chance of any shenanigans, no procedural bullshit going on with Chuck Schumer, crying Chuck as he gets called pejoratively by Trump on a regular basis. But the voters already had their say. I had my say. In 2016, I voted for Donald Trump. In 2018, voters decided to not only let the Republicans keep the Senate, but give them an extra couple seats. They almost got 3. Except that there were some shenanigans down there, I believe, in Arizona and Razorfist's home state. The cat thinks that I'm a chair sometimes. Or a bed. She actually fell asleep last night while I was petting her, no joke. Right in my arms just like a little baby. It was very cute and charming, but, the Democrats, this line is easily deflated. When they say it, like when you see it on Twitter or something, just say, well, the voters had their say. They voted for Trump. What, they shouldn't have to say it constantly? Yeah, maybe an election year. The election hasn't happened yet. Trump pointing this out, I was elected president for 4 years, not 3. That is correct. And typically speaking, and this is true as well, if the party of the president and the Senate are of the same party, if the same party holds the executive branch and that element of the legislature responsible for voting for a SCOTUS appointment, then they vote to confirm, if they have the votes. Now, typically, of course, in the past, you've actually had a very close Senate recently in U.S. history. The Senate's been close in on 50-50 for quite some time now. Historically speaking, in many cases, it swang widely to one side or the other. You have a party as 62 Senate seats or something. You don't really have that at this point. Things are so hyper-polarized and so 50-50 in the suburban areas and small towns generally. You have red rural America, you have blue urban America, and then you have the margins of these two, smaller cities, towns and the suburbs, the marginal suburbs, which encompass a huge proportion of the population, that are basically 50-50. Well, that's why when you look at the demographic map, it's a different story. I would say this. Coney Barrett should be put in there, again, before Election Day. I say this while having considerable reservations about some of her beliefs. No, I'm not religious. You may have noticed that. So the fact that she would belong to a highly religious group, while it rankles me, does it really necessitate that she affect her decisions that way? The answer is probably not. Ginsburg was Jewish. It doesn't seem that I think she, on the BDS stuff, I think had consistently been in favor of it being upheld as a First Amendment issue, if I remember correctly. And she's Jewish. Or was. She's dead now. She's made like John McCain, supposedly very good friends at this point, the establishment. Probably less pro-war than John McCain. Not that that's saying much. I think he even outclasses John Bolton or Dick Cheney at this point. No, the Democrats are totally wrong. The voters already chose. Twice, in fact, in 2 different elections. The House went for the Democrats, but the House isn't responsible for the Supreme Court stuff going on. When Pelosi says, well, I'll bring up impeachment again, you're toothless, dude. It doesn't matter if you have every House seat. You don't have the votes to impeach. You don't have the votes to remove. You don't have a reason for impeachment. What are you talking about? Even bringing it up is just such sour grapes, and really it's just red meat to the Dem base. That's about all. Peace out.